About a year ago, Game Theory released an Ultimate Timeline which received mixed reviews over some details that seemed a little out there, to say the least. But one that stood out to me was the beginning. Matthew's timeline stated that William had existed all the way back in the 30s, and was inspired by a real singing bear to make Fredbear, which even back then sounded like a complete leap of logic that was only relying on one piece of evidence, that being the ticket for the show found in Security Breach. To our knowledge, singing animals aren't a thing that exists in this universe, nor does it make sense for William to be well into his 50s or 60s during the MCI, which I don't see that happening. Not to mention, why wouldn't the Circus then sue Afton for stealing their characters for his diner restaurants? It just doesn't add up. But what if William did see Fredbear's singing show? But not an actual animal, but rather a man in a costume. The man that turned William into the monster he is. Afton's father. Before we get any further, Afton's father doesn't exist, nor is there evidence to suggest he does, but if we're running with headcanons that William saw a singing bear, why not rewrite it that the headcanon of game theories to actually make sense and fit the narrative of the story trying to be told, you know? First of all, let's talk about the opposite, William's children, mostly Elizabeth, who I think fits William as a parallel for this fairly well. We're shown in the Silver Eyes that growing up, William clearly didn't spend much time with his children, busy building up his empire or other ventures in his free time. This leads his children to desire his attention more and more. We see this with Elizabeth as she takes notice of William's fondness of Charlie in the fourth closet. She tries her best to mimic Charlie to be this object that William loves, but it never works. In her last attempt to get close to the robot, she's grabbed by it, becoming one with the machine. Meanwhile, in the game's timeline, William builds the fun times resembling his family, or so is believed, likely to continue the charade of caring for his family, or to build a better version of his family that would bow to his whim. Elizabeth notices the attention he's given this machine that looks just like her, so why does he care for it more than her? She gets too close and is grabbed as well. We see in both timelines that despite their grief towards their father, even after death they still want his attention, to have him care for them. Meanwhile, we can see similar behavior, to be believed at the very least, to come from Micheal, explaining why he lashes out at his brother so often, given the attention that bite victim seems to be receiving during that time versus him, resulting in the bite of 83. Though, mind you, Micheal and Elizabeth were children, who didn't know any better and were manipulated into the positions they found themselves in as a result of William's behavior. Where the story differs, Micheal kills his brother as a child, which obviously messes him up, and creating a giant amount of grief over the event, likely making him not want to take another life, while Elizabeth is killed far before her father can ever use her to help. William never had to suffer in those ways, which if he had a bad childhood would have allowed for those feelings of wanting to be seen to grow enough to make him snap. It also explains William's inability to love, as he was never raised with someone to love him. That feeling could be something he didn't understand. He doesn't know how to love his own family because he was never loved by his own. He never knew how to raise a child because he wasn't raised properly. At most, he probably would have been shoved in the corner with some toys to leave him alone, which seems to very much be his own behavior towards his children in the games, allowing his kids to run around unwatched while he's working, as shown in FNAF 4. We can even see that they got left home alone, or can walk the streets without a single word to him. He doesn't care what they do. Okay, so William probably has daddy issues. Why is that important? Well, what if I told you it would also explain another interesting quirk of William's character? I think Circus Baby is to Elizabeth as Spring Bonnie is to William, both characters created by their fathers to represent them. Well, why would I say that? Running with Fazbear's being as old as the 30s, I think it's unlikely that Fredbear was created by William, but rather someone else that would have been alive during the 30s, that would eventually give the company to William, which I think best fits with it being William's father. And William's father didn't own a real singing bear, but rather a bear costume for a performer to wear, with the original appearance of Fredbear. As William grew up, his father was too busy running the circus, especially as the form of entertainment would become more and more outdated. When William was old enough, his father brought him into the company to play an additional character to Fredbear, that being Spring Bonnie. And what William would notice is that his father would give him attention and treat him like a person whenever he wore the mask, enough to where he felt like he was a real person inside the suit. So when William was handed down the IP, he would find a young Henry Emily who was inspired by their show, as in the books that he had in the Silver Eyes, and had been running a pizzeria inspired by Fredbear's characters, potentially the Mediocre Melodies. William and Henry would then put their money together to get Fredbear's up and running, where William would continue to don the suit that he always had, while Henry would wear the Fredbear suit, William's father's suit. In fact, Henry looked strangely like William, who already had a passing resemblance to his father. So William would see this man who looks like his father, entertaining just like his father had. It made William develop weird feelings towards Henry, just as he had towards his own father. That would be until he noticed how Henry treated his daughter, Charlie. She was his world. He never left her alone. It was a feeling William had never felt, a father's love. To make matters worse, William also began to reflect on the treatment of his own children, which he had treated no differently than his father. It felt like Henry was mocking him. But as business started to ramp up, they needed to start installing security systems to keep watch, leading to the creation of the security puppet. It was programmed specifically to watch over Charlie. When one stormy night the security system was down, William took his opportunity to end the relationship that was bringing him pain. Without Charlie, Henry would be destroyed. William felt like, in a way, he was getting revenge on his own father, while removing the reminder of how horrible of a father he was, a wound first inflicted on Henry that would show William had passed the threshold. It would begin to bleed out as the value of life became more and more blurry to William over the years. Now, the chances of this headcanon being exactly canon, probably not. Then again, it seems to me a lot of people agree that William likely did have a bad childhood, but that depends on if Scott's willing to cover it. What I like about this theory, miles above Willcare as a motivation, is that there's no way to paint William as some sort of sympathetic character in this interpretation. And troubled childhoods are far more common origins for serial killers as compared to killing over the death of a child. It explains William constantly feeling like a grown child, throwing tantrums when he's defeated, and considering himself as one of the machines, because inside the mask, he feels powerful, and after the spring locking, he finally became one of the characters. He finally became one with the character that his father respected. He was the best version of himself, far better than William Afton ever could be. Just remember, this doesn't have much evidence, but it's a cool theory nonetheless. If you feel like I made a mistake like I have previously covering motives for William Afton, please let me know. And until next time, matane.